The deep rumble of distant artillery echoes across the steppe. Silhouetted tanks, a colossal wave of steel, advance relentlessly under the cold, pale light of a moon that offers no solace. Their numbers stretch to an impossible horizon, an inexorable force conceived in ambition, forged in iron, and unleashed with terrifying speed. Operation Barbarossa. Summer 1941. The Eastern Front. A colossal clash of ideologies. A theatre where the fate of nations would be decided in blood and mud. The objective was clear, etched in the minds of the aggressors. Moscow. A swift, decisive victory for the Third Reich, a prize to cement their dominion. The German High Command believed their blitzkrieg was infallible. They banked on numbers, on the sheer weight of their armoured might, to pave the way to conquest. They underestimated the sheer, brutal vastness, the relentless mud, the grinding, ever-present spectre of logistics, in a land that seemed determined to swallow them whole. The initial thrust was brutal, overwhelming. Localized resistance crumbled, outmaneuvered and outgunned, swallowed by the sheer velocity of the German advance. Soviet units found themselves cut off. Their carefully constructed defenses were being systematically dismantled. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture for the Soviet leadership. The enemy was everywhere, an omnipresent threat consuming the horizon. Praise and accolades flowed back to the homeland. The capture of cities was swift, celebrated as further proof of their inevitable dominance. The propaganda machine worked overtime, amplifying the myth of invincibility, weaving a narrative of destined triumph that masked the growing cracks beneath the surface. But deep within the Soviet command, a different strategy was being forged, one that understood the limitations of sheer numbers, not brute force, but calculated defense. The concept of coordinated saturation, designed to trap and destroy. They began constructing a labyrinth of defenses, hidden and interconnected, each position designed to support another. Artillery batteries were meticulously sited, their arcs of fire overlapping to create an inescapable killing zone. Communication lines, though vulnerable, were vital for synchronized fire, the very heartbeat of their coordinated defense. The German advance continued, confident of an easy breakthrough, oblivious to the unseen wall they were about to encounter. Then, the first salvo. Not a scattered attack, but a focused barrage, precisely placed. From unseen positions, artillery rained down with devastating accuracy, each shell finding its mark. Tanks, the symbol of German might, became trapped, vulnerable targets, their armor no match for sustained, coordinated fire. German infantry, caught in the open and separated from their armored support, found themselves under pure hellfire, their advance broken before it truly began. Machine gun nests, cleverly disguised within the very earth, unleashed torrents of lead. Where was the enemy? They seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The fog of war thickened, obscuring the source of the relentless fire. The advance stalled. The relentless momentum faltered against an invisible, unyielding barrier. Every inch of ground was contested with fierce, coordinated resistance. The attackers found themselves exposed, vulnerable to an enemy they could barely see. Anti-tank crews, hidden and ready, picked off armor with chilling efficiency. Even improvised tactics became deadly when fully integrated into the defense. Simple weapons, wielded with precision, could cripple the most formidable machines. The terrain, once an advantage for rapid movement, now became a trap for their heavy machines. The ground itself seemed to conspire against the attackers. Reconnaissance failed to grasp the depth and integration of the Soviet defenses. The initial confidence began to erode, replaced by a gnawing frustration. The overwhelming might they expected to break was proving to be a surprisingly resilient foe. They concentrated their might, a thunderous wave of steel and fire, seeking to shatter the enemy's will. But they met unbroken lines of relentless, disciplined fire, an unyielding bulwark. From the flanks, small, precisely timed assaults began to unravel the German formations, disrupting their brute force with calculated precision. The German logistics, stretched to their breaking point, struggled to feed the stalled advance. Each mile gained was a mile that strained their vital arteries. Dwindling resources meant dwindling hope. The narrative itself began to shift. From a desperate retreat, the story transformed into one of resolute, unwavering defense, a nation united. Bombing raids rained destruction from the skies, a testament to technological might. Yet, they could not shatter the deeply dug-in, resilient defenses below. Each defender understood their purpose. Their interconnectedness was the true strength, a chain forged in the fires of necessity. Confusion replaced clarity as the unexpected resistance fractured their command. Orders became fragmented, lost in the deafening roar of battle. The killing zones were not accidents of war, but meticulously planned intersections of fire, each weapon a guardian, covering its neighbor, ensuring no passage. Minefields were not just obstacles, but integrated elements of the defensive plan. Each buried charge, a silent promise of disruption. The coordination was constant, fluid, and deadly, a silent language of warfare, ensuring every shell found its mark. Progress choked, supplies dwindled, and the steel behemoths became grounded tombs. The infamous Russian mud season began, exacerbating the logistical nightmare. The elemental fury of the Russian winter became a weapon as formidable as any artillery piece. The Soviet tanks, built for the harsh climate, now held an advantage. The battlefield was a frozen purgatory, draining strength and resolve. Every advance became a desperate struggle against nature and an unseen enemy. The grand offensive was unraveling, not by a single decisive blow, but by 1,000 cuts of attrition and environment. The strategic objective of Moscow was now a distant dream. The Soviet Union began to mobilize its vast reserves, now organized and ready. The enemy was no longer just the Soviets, it was the very land itself, a frozen, unforgiving adversary. New, devastating weapons were unleashed. Katyusha rocket launchers tore through the static lines. The offensive had faltered, transforming into a desperate struggle for survival. The tide had turned. Every captured trench, every fallen enemy was a victory hard won. Communication breakdowns became critical for the retreating Germans. Isolation was a silent killer, amplifying their vulnerability. The machines of war were becoming liabilities, unable to move or be supported. They were targets, not weapons, stranded in a hostile landscape. Hope was fading. The first invincible army, once a thunderous tide, was bleeding out on the unforgiving steppe. The strategic initiative had definitively shifted. The momentum of the war had irrevocably turned. The vast numbers that once promised swift victory now became a crushing burden. The Red Army's counterattack was a relentless surge, pushing the invaders back hundreds of kilometers. A graveyard of German armor littered the Eastern Front, silent testaments to logistical collapse and tactical defeat. They had paid a terrible price in blood and sacrifice, but they had held, they had endured, they had prevailed. The meticulously coordinated defense, a symphony of steel and fire, had proven its overwhelming superiority against brute force. The overwhelming numbers that stormed the East were ultimately broken, not by more men, but by a better plan. This battle proved that in war, as in life, uncoordinated might is ultimately defeated by the quiet, persistent strength of a system.